Elias Carver's shift began the way all graveyard shifts begin. Too quiet, too cold, and too large for one pair of boots to patrol. The harbor's hush felt weightier than usual, as though the water itself had overslept. Somewhere behind the gleaming white shells of the opera house, a ferry horn sighed, then faded. Elias pulled his coat tighter and traced his usual loop across the marble forecourt, wiping sea mist from his badge. Half-lit lampposts drew trembling paths across the tiles, and the city skyline glimmered like a low constellation. On this stretch of harbor, the smallest sound cut through everything, which is why a faint, wheezy whimper, more exhale than bark, reached him at once. He stalled mid-step. The noise repeated, trembling. Elias angled his flashlight and caught a harsh glint. A crumpled grocery bag, cinched cruelly at the handles, rocking with every harbor breeze. He approached on instinct, boots echoing. Inside the plastic lay a knot of pale fur, so motionless he thought it might be refuse. Only when the bag twitched did he realize the animal still breathed. A single dark eye peeked from the folds, reflecting his torchlight with resigned terror. Elias's pulse surged. Policy said report, wait for rangers. His gut said, move, now. He knelt, jaw tight, and tore the bag apart. The creature slumped forward. A golden puppy, all protruding ribs and matted curls, looking less like a dog than a candle stub burned nearly to the wick. Elias slid off one glove and pressed trembling fingers to the pup's chest. A fluttering heartbeat, fragile but stubborn. Harbor wind hissed through the sails above, as if urging him on. In that instant, the opera house, the skyline, the rules, everything receded. Only the pup existed, and the urgent arithmetic of survival. Plastic still clung to the puppy's hind leg like a noose, and Elias sliced it free with the box cutter he kept for rogue zip ties. The smell, stale brine, spoiled milk, panic, knifed through the night air. He whispered useless comforts, letting the pup taste the cadence of a gentle voice. The dog's eyelids sagged, half dreaming, half dying. Exhaustion weighed heavier than fear. Elias scanned the forecourt. Cameras, tourists' litter, 1,000 blind windows in the city's silver towers. Not one person in sight. He cupped the puppy to his chest, coat flaring around them like a cape, and felt its shallow ribs tap Morse code against his heart. Every step toward the security kiosk felt unable to close the distance fast enough, as though fate enjoyed watching him sweat. He kicked the door open with his heel, flicked on the space heater, and set the pup atop a folded high-vis vest. Emergency protocol. Offer water in teaspoon sips. Keep warm. Call wildlife services. He cradled a battered mug under the instant boiler, cooled it with bottled water, and trickled a drop at a time onto the pup's cracked gums. Each swallow landed like a victory drum. Elias phoned the after-hours vet down in Woolloomooloo. No transport till dawn. Fine. He snagged an unused company blanket, wrapped the puppy burrito tight, and held it beneath the heater while the second-hand clock thunked out seconds. Between breaths he studied the nameless animal, ears still velvety despite grime, tail twitching under sedation of fatigue, fur the color of fresh honey under streetlights. Strange, he thought, how a life so luminous could survive inside something as common as a shopping bag. The puppy sneezed, barely audible, and for the first time lifted its head, meeting Elias's gaze with confused faith. That was the moment the guard's responsibility hardened into promise. Some rescues end when the shift whistle blows. This one had just begun. An unmarked security SUV idled in the service lane 10 minutes later, heater blasting like a desert wind. Elias swiped his attendance card, radioed a vague, maintenance run, and slid behind the wheel with the bundle on his lap. Sydney pre-dawn traffic was mercifully thin, but every red light felt like sabotage. At one intersection, a cyclist peered in, curious, then offered a thumbs up when he saw the tiny nose poking from the blanket. The gesture fueled Elias's resolve. Compassion thrived in echoes. He reached the 24-hour veterinary hospital. Fluorescent entry, coffee-stained magazines, promise of salvation in antiseptic air. A nurse whisked the puppy onto a stainless steel scale, scribbling numbers too low for comfort. Hypothermia, dehydration, early starvation, possible respiratory infection, the checklist of neglect. Treatment would cost more than his week's wages. He approved every line item without flinching. Paperwork asked for a name. Opera seemed trite. Lucky. Too obvious. He printed Solo in block letters, an homage to the lone whimper that pierced a city's hush. While Solo received warmed fluids through a catheter, Elias paced the hallway, replaying the scene like surveillance footage. Who abandons life at the doorstep of art? Each footstep pinged off tile, stitching guilt into determination. When at last the vet pronounced the puppy critical but fighting, adrenaline drained from him, leaving a raw vacancy. He sank into a plastic chair, staring at a poster that read, "Adopt, don't shop." The words no longer felt like slogan. They felt like personal summons. Dawn bled through frosted glass. Harbour gulls cried beyond the walls, oblivious to the fragile miracle unfolding here. Elias realized his shift officially ended 40 minutes ago, but a different shift, one measured not by hours but by devotion, had only just begun. 2 weeks later, Elias's apartment smelled of beef broth, antiseptic wash, and that peculiar sweetness puppies exhale after sleep. Solo nested in a repurposed laundry basket lined with opera-themed tea towels, souvenirs turned swaddles. Daily his ribs retreated beneath new flesh, fur regained its buttery sheen, and eyes brightened like twin suns. Feedings were ritual, boiled chicken shredded to confetti, rice fluffed like clouds, broth drizzled until every grain glistened. Elias kept meticulous logs, milliliters consumed, durations of tail wag, frequency of playful growls. Healing possessed its own symphony, and he refused to miss a note. Nights he dozed on the couch beside Solo, one arm dangling inside the basket so the pup could verify, with a single nose nudge, that safety had not left the room. Days he smuggled Solo to work in a soft carrier until management discovered the stowaway. Rather than reprimand, the site supervisor, herself a rescue cat devotee, installed a therapy break room near the staff lockers, stocked with chew toys and hand sanitizer. Word spread. Soon guards on overtime meandered in just to de-stress, exiting with lighter shoulders. Solo's recovery wrote ripples across an entire workforce. On the 15th day, the vet cleared light outdoor activity. Elias carried the pup to Benelong Point at sunrise, heart hammering. The opera house unfurled before them, alabaster sails catching dawn like colossal wings. Beneath that architectural cathedral, Solo took his first confident steps, wobbling across the same marble where death once breathed into a plastic bag. Elias knelt and whispered, "Welcome back." A ferry horn saluted, gulls circled overhead, and the harbour painted gold mirrors across gentle waves, as though the city itself acknowledged the comeback of one small heartbeat. If recovery forged trust, exploration forged bond. Elias enrolled Solo in puppy school evenings at Rushcutter's Bay, where joyful chaos reigned, beagles baying arias, poodles pirouetting for treats, humans fumbling clickers like offbeat percussionists. Solo, timid at first, soon mastered sit, stay, and a tail wag so vigorous it resembled flight prep. Instructors praised his resilience. Elias felt parental pride bloom, an emotion foreign yet addictive. Back at the Opera House, management capitalized on the feel-good narrative, organizing a lunchtime puppy meet and greet to raise funds for local shelters. Tourists queued beside ushers, snapping photos of Solo in a pint-sized security vest. The image of a once-discarded dog now guarding the very venue where he was found spun across social feeds faster than any marketing campaign. Donations flooded in, shelters placed animals into homes at record pace. Media outlets requested interviews, but Elias shielded Solo from sensation. The dog's world, he insisted, should stay sized to kind voices, grassy romps, and nightly cuddle audits. Yet fame crept in regardless. Children recognized Solo on Circular Quay, squealing as though he were an animated character sprung to life. Each pat reinforced the lesson Elias now lived by. Compassion, passed hand to paw, scales infinitely. On quiet evenings, he'd sit on his balcony, Solo's head on his knee, watching ferries ribbon across water. He contemplated the odds, how a single torn bag, a single watchman's intuition, had bent two trajectories toward a shared horizon. Spring leaked into Sydney with jasmine fragrance and street performer melodies, and Solo's adolescence unfurled like a flag caught by warm wind. His coat deepened to molten amber, his stride lengthened into a joyous lope, and his nose mapped every scent from pastry carts to sailing ropes. Elias, once a man of rigid roots, learned to wander. They trekked the coastal walk from Bondi to Coogee, stopping whenever Solo insisted on greeting another dog, a salt-sprayed surfer, or a pensioner with biscuit crumbs in pocket. On the cliffs, Solo tasted the Pacific breeze, ears billowing, eyes squinted in wonder. Elias tasted the rare freedom of unscheduled hours. During one sunset rest, Solo curled against his guardian's side, and memory ambushed Elias, a childhood terrier named Scout, lost to a car when he was 12. Grief had walled his heart for years. Solo's presence breached it effortlessly, letting sunlight flood chambers long kept dark. He realized that rescuing animals was never one way. Salvation ricocheted. For every meal, bath, and vet bill he offered, Solo returned unfiltered awe, reminding him that every ordinary Monday could crack open and bleed magic if you stepped out the door and looked. That revelation seeped into Elias's work ethic, turning monotony into opportunity. Every stranger might need help, every shadow might hide a story worth illuminating. The guard watched himself become a custodian, not just of property, but of possibility. Inevitably, the internet crowned Solo the Opera Pup, a moniker that stuck like bubblegum to sneakers. A viral clip, Solo trotting beside Elias during dawn patrol, vest flapping, garnered millions of views within days. Impassioned comments demanded merchandise. Designers whipped up T-shirts featuring a cartoon golden retriever saluting beneath stylized opera sales. Profits funneled straight into a trust for low-income pet owners' veterinary bills, at Elias's insistence. Reporters asked how it felt to transform tragedy into brand. Elias replied that the real transformation was quieter. One stomach filled, one fear extinguished, one bond forged. The rest was just echo. Still, echoes reach places original voices can't. A teacher in Wagga Wagga wrote that her students read Solo's story and organized a blanket drive for the town shelter. A retiree in Perth donated his late wife's knitting supplies to craft rescue dog sweaters. Compassion cascaded like dominoes set in harmonic motion. Yet fame had thorns. Paparazzi once startled Solo with flashbulbs, triggering trembling reminiscent of plastic bag days. Elias drew boundaries. No interviews without ample space, no events exceeding Solo's comfort. Remarkably, fans respected the limits, proof that empathy could learn manners. In quieter corners of cyberspace, activists spotlighted the larger issue: over 200,000 dogs abandoned annually nationwide. Policies shifted, councils debated harsher penalties, adoption rates ticked upward. Solo's survival narrated itself into law briefs and municipal budgets. A footnote with teeth. The puppy, once sentenced to oblivion, now rewrote the margins of civic conscience. One winter morning, a counsellor from the Sydney Children's Hospital emailed Ilias, "Would Solo consider training as a therapy dog?" Cancer wards and trauma units searched constantly for gentle distractions, soft fur against harsh realities. Elias hesitated. The hospital air reeked of antiseptics and fragile hope, worlds away from harbour breezes. But he studied Solo, sprawled belly up, snoring, perfectly at peace among sirens from the street below, and believed the dog's resilience might prove contagious. 8 weeks of certification ensued. Obedience drills, desensitization to medical equipment, practice sessions with volunteers. Solo excelled, tail wagging through corridors as though hospital linoleum were a personal runway. His greatest asset wasn't tricks, but presence. Children clung to his neck like life preservers, giggling when his whiskers tickled their cheeks. Parents wept quietly, grateful for any smile their child could summon. Nurses swore medication compliance improved on Solo days. Doctors booked rounds to coincide with the golden shift. Elias watched the pup's kindness mirror back in every brave face and felt humility bloom. He had saved a life. That life now buoyed countless others. Purpose, he realized, multiplies in motion. The security guard who once patrolled silent plazas now patrolled the frontiers where fear meets hope. Armed not with a baton, but with a dog whose heartbeat had once threatened to flicker out. Certification culminated in a small ceremony beside the hospital koi pond. Children who could leave their beds wheeled out with IV poles decked in streamers. Solo wore a blue bandana embroidered with the words, "Healing Ambassador." Elias, unexpectedly nervous, knelt to adjust the knot, remembering the first night's skeletal tremors beneath his palm. The head veterinarian pinned a silver paw-print badge to Solo's vest. Cameras clicked. Applause rippled like wind through bamboo. Solo, ever humble, responded by licking the nearest toddler's ice-cream-smeared cheek, eliciting laughter that toppled tears. That evening, news aired a montage. The Opera House skyline, archival footage of the plastic bag, Solo nuzzling hospital patients. Commentators called it a full-circle narrative. Elias knew circles are merely spirals. You return never to the same point, but to an elevated echo. He drove home under city lights that felt celebratory, Solo's muzzle on his thigh. Traffic hummed a lullaby, and he contemplated how guardianship had rewritten his identity. He no longer measured nights in patrol hours, but in lives brightened, meters walked, fears quieted. Somewhere a younger version of himself still believed happiness was a static destination. Now he understood. It was motion, ever outward, like concentric rings when a stone kisses water. Solo slept, paws twitching, perhaps dreaming of marble plazas transmuted into playgrounds of infinite yes. Years drifted like harbour mists, and dawn once again found Elias and Solo standing at Benelong Point, older in body, yet lighter in spirit. The Opera House dazzled in first light, unchanged yet perpetually new. Solo's muzzle bore threads of silver, but his eyes retained meteoric glow. Tour buses disgorged early tourists. A young guard, fresh to the night shift, saluted Elias with casual respect, unaware he saluted living law. Elias reflected on this shoreline as palimpsest. First a sight of near death, then rescue, then renaissance. Solo sat at heel, gaze sweeping the horizon as though guarding all the miracles still queued for sunrise. Elias whispered gratitude to the thin plastic that failed to suffocate, to the ear that caught a whimper, to every hand that donated coins, blankets, likes, laws, love. He realized legends rarely roar onto stages. They whimper in the dark, hoping one passerby will pause. He ruffled Solo's fur, soft as memory now, and together they resumed their walk, leaving twin silhouettes on marble, warmed by a new day's promise. Somewhere behind them, a ferry horn called. Somewhere ahead, a stranger's need waited unnoticed. Guardian and dog moved forward, practiced in the art of noticing. And in their wake, the city's heartbeat felt fractionally steadier, as though one small life, once balled in garbage, now pulsed in rhythm with a harbor too vast to measure, but never again too large to care.